Kamala Harris went on Fox News last night to be interviewed by Bret Baier, and it was a complete hit job. I did a reaction to it late last night to a stream of 10 people, but I want to give an actual evaluation of how it went. And I also have a clip that's terrible, by the way, from Fox News' side, from Bret Baier, that takes away even more credibility from that organization, deceptively editing Donald Trump's claims and conversation about the evil within. This is disgusting. It's malpractice. I don't even have words for how wild this is, that on Fox News, this happened live. Like, Kamala calls this out live.
And so tonight, that Bret Baier came at Kamala Harris with every attack in the Trump playbook, including one moment where he got caught using an edited soundbite of Trump.
If you listen to Donald Trump, if you watch any of his rallies, he's the one who tends to demean and belittle and diminish the American people. He's the one who talks about an enemy within, an enemy within, talking about the American people, suggesting he would turn the American military on the American people.
We asked that question to the former president today. Harris Faulkner had a town hall, and this is how he responded.
I heard about that. They were saying I was like threatening. I'm not threatening anybody. They're the ones doing the threatening. They do phony investigations. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the greatest gangster. No, it's true.
Even in clip number 1 that's really edited, he doesn't even deny it. He just cries about himself. He goes back to whining about himself like always.
But think of it. It's called weaponization of government. It's a terrible thing.
So,
every accusation is a confession from these guys. Every accusation is a confession. It's called weaponization of government.
But I'm sorry, and with all due respect, that clip was not what he has been saying about the enemy within, that he has repeated when he's speaking about the American people. That's not what you just showed.
Well, he was asked about that specific...
No, that's not what you just showed.
Oh, that's so slimy. That's so gross.
In all fairness and respect,
he's trying to play it off.
That we asked him.
He didn't show that, and here's the bottom line. He has repeated it many times, and you and I both know that. And you and I both know that he has talked about turning the American military on the American people. He has talked about going after people who are engaged in peaceful protest. He has talked about locking people up because they disagree with him. This is a democracy. And in a democracy, the President of the United States, in the United States of America, should be willing to be able to handle criticism without saying he'd lock people up for...
Very strong response. And I love how this is the same conversation, because when she's scripted and focus grouped, she sounded terrible, even in her cadence and tone of voice. But here she catches that they showed an edited clip live, and she sounds mad. She sounds confident. She sounds to the point. She sounds fantastic here.
Doing it. And this is what is at stake, which is why you have someone like the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff saying what Mark Milley has said about Donald Trump being a threat to the United States of America.
He's quoted in the Bob Woodward book that way, yes.
No, not Bob Woodward, just Bret Baier just used a soundbite to try to clear Donald Trump of saying a thing in which he cut out the part where he says it. Watch.
It is the enemy from within, and they're very dangerous. They're Marxists and communists and fascists, and they're sick. I use a guy like Adam Schiff because they made up the Russia hoax. It took 2 years to solve the problem. Absolutely nothing was done wrong, et cetera, et cetera. They're dangerous for our country. We have China, we have Russia, we have all these countries. If you have a smart president, they can all be handled. The more difficult are, the Pelosi's, these people, they're so sick and they're so evil. If they would spend their time trying to make America great again, it would be so easy to make this country great. But when I heard about that, they were saying I was like threatening. I'm not threatening anybody. They're the ones doing the threatening. They do phony investigations. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the greatest gangster. No, it's true. No, but think of it. It's called weaponization of government. It's a terrible thing.
All right.
They're the threat to democracy.
You see what they did there?
Every accusation is a confession, man. And he even says they are a threat to democracy after crying, oh, the Democrats are using violent rhetoric. He calls them every name in the book, says the enemy within. There's nothing more violent than that. Talking about how we are... Okay, so following his usual talks, okay, so China is okay, Russia is okay, Hungary is okay. He loves those dictators. He brags about China and he's envious that they are able to rule their people with an iron fist. He repeats over and over and over again. And now he says those countries are not scary. They are not bad. The real enemy is the enemy within, which is the radical left, communists, Democrats, etc. Yeah, and I see people talking about, Donald Trump just said we might need the National Guard if things get crazy on election day. Bro, he literally says in opposition to China, Russia, and North Korea, that the enemy within is really the Democrats, and then brings up the military as a possible means to resolve that problem. He's not talking about election security. Bro, the January 6th leader, bro, be real. Don't be, come on. You're insulting your own intelligence making dumb arguments like that. When I talk critically about Kamala, I don't think she did bad. There are areas where I wish she would have went a little bit harder. For example, I thought Kamala should have went on Fox News and said a couple times, she said it once at the end, but I'm focusing on actual policies, because they start off on immigration for 10 minutes in Pennsylvania. It's supposed to be Pennsylvania themed topics because they're in the state. And of course, well-known border state, Pennsylvania. The entire conversation in the first 15 minutes was about immigrants, trans immigrants in prisons. They were asking if Harris actually was trying to hide Biden's mental capabilities. It was the worst Twitter thread you could imagine in human form. And this was a Trump operative asking very deceitful questions of Kamala. And then at the very end, Bret Baier has the audacity to say, oh, I wanted to have a conversation about the issues and policies affecting the American people. Like, yeah, bro. The transgender immigrant prisoner who needed a transgender sex change, that person who makes up 0.00001% of the population, that is, of course, the main topic Americans want to focus on. But when I criticize Kamala, it's because I know many Americans do want to focus on that. They hear immigrant and they hear evil, violent monster. They don't hear neighbor and hardworking person. So Bret Baier brought up the individuals who were killed by undocumented immigrants, and he uses their deaths for politics, like Donald Trump's campaign does commonly. And Kamala just kept saying, I followed the law. We do need to improve the border. Donald Trump should also want to improve this. I tried passing an actual law, and that's a good point. It's substance. Kamala and Biden had an actual law to get passed through Congress. Everything Trump did at the border was executive action, and Bret Baier pressed Kamala on the Remain in Mexico policy that Trump had through executive action and I'm pretty sure emergency orders, which resulted in sex trafficking of minors, because what happened was many undocumented people had to stay on the other side of the Mexican border. They had nowhere to go because these are families fleeing violent countries, trying to come to America to be members of safe communities where they can work hard and make a life for themselves. So essentially that first 15, 20 minutes, if you already believe immigrants are evil, which that probably makes up 40% of the American public, then you probably thought Kamala looked terrible. But when it comes to that voter who is still undecided and maybe moderate Republican, I think overall she looked good. I wanted her to come on and say, hey, Trump, I am on Fox News right now. I am willing to do this. And kudos to Kamala for doing it. I am willing to come on Fox News. You are not doing any interviews at all of anyone who's going to hold you to anything. Trump has looked terrible, historically terrible in the past few days of doing different town halls or whatever you want to call it. I wish Kamala would have looked at the camera and said, I'm on Fox News. Come debate me. Why are you scared? I wish she would have pushed that line more about Donald Trump being unstable and Donald Trump not being able to lead, and challenging Donald Trump even more directly on the world stage on Fox News. Everyone's watching. Come debate me. I think she could have been stronger there, more direct in some areas. Overall, it's a solid performance, and New York Times gave her a positive headline for the first time after an interview. So there is an audience this performance will appeal to. And this is when we need to make sure we are looking at this not through the view of what we want to see in politics, but maybe her performance here, being willing to take this chance and go into essentially a Trump campaign headquarters. I think some voters will give her credit on that, because there are some swing voters who see that as a sign of strength. You have to realize these people also vote Donald Trump when he goes on a dumb platform and he just calls the reporter dumb and cries and starts tearing up and pooping his pants and runs away from the interviewer. They see that as strength. So maybe Kamala just being willing to do it does matter for some people. But yeah, I think overall it was decent, not huge, not groundbreaking. But the past week in general has exposed how bad Donald Trump has gotten. His health is terrible. There's no accountability. He doesn't even need to answer one question about tariffs or any type of actual policy. Donald Trump has the Vibes campaign, and we know Elon Musk is pouring money into Jill Stein's campaign, and Elon Musk recently, in the recent FEC filings, has been propping up Super PAC, which is convincing Jewish voters that Kamala is too pro-Palestine and convincing Muslim voters that Kamala is too pro-Israel. So we have these chaos agents trying to disrupt the information process. And when we talk about what Kamala's strategy should be, at some point, these campaigns have such a huge gap. Okay, no matter if you like Kamala's approach, I think her campaign's been pretty effective. I've said that in multiple videos. Whether you like her approach or not, these campaigns have such huge gaps. If she somehow loses, it's the fault of propaganda and voters not having information, and voters being lied to, and voters believing in shiny object politics that are all made up fake reality politics. The stock market is at all-time highs, surging insane amounts. Inflation crashing down. There's jobs surging. Like, every quality of life indicator in the US right now is surging, except people's emotional states. And of course, we're comparing this to other US stats in other years. So it's not great, but it's still the best we've had in America. Our economy, the American dollar right now buys more groceries than it did in 2019. And talking about how people's emotional states aren't doing good, all of the negative questions that Brett was asking Kamala were framed around the idea that things are good, but why don't people think they're good? Also, if Donald Trump's actually so bad, why do many people like him? And those questions are annoying because Kamala is being constantly pressured to move away from Biden's administration, when Biden's policies have been some of the most impressive policies passed by any administration in the modern political era in the United States. And they have worked extremely effectively. The FCC has been fantastic. The FTC, Federal Trade, has been fantastic with Lena Khan. And things are looking really good under his admin, but it doesn't matter because people don't feel like things are good because there's a vibe issue. There's the vibe session that people are using now. And talking about Donald Trump, why do people still like him if he's so bad? Okay, maybe it's a them issue, man. Maybe it's a them issue. Maybe it's propaganda. Why are you asking Kamala constant questions about everything except policy? Not one real question was asked this entire time. It was terrible. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Also, channel memberships are open. They start at $3. You get a special badge in the comments, highlighted comments, and also I will respond to everything, special emotes, special private chats to get more insight into my personal organizing life, maybe possible races I can run for, so you can support that as well with only $3 a month or higher tiers. That'd be awesome. But yeah, it takes a couple hours a day to make these videos. It'd be great to have your support.